Wow, it's so nice to meet you, Kimberly. Thanks for tagging me in that post today and letting me know that you were down here. And Alyssa Morgan, same last name.
Yes.
Nice to meet you both.
You too.
This is the first that I've heard about Embrace Ministries. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so Embrace Grace, we inspire and equip the church to love on single and pregnant young women and their families. And so we do that through essentially pure church ministry. So we partner with churches to offer support groups. And they're not just support groups, it's an outreach opportunity and discipleship opportunity as well. So we have Embrace Grace, which is for single and pregnant young women. And it's about a 12-week long program where we have DVD and study guide curriculum that makes it easy to lead. And we talk about things like identity and value and worth and who they are in Christ and that they're a daughter of the Most High King and that they're valuable. And we talk about forgiveness and breaking chains. And so it's healing. And, essentially a woman walking through an unplanned pregnancy, it's really just a symptom of something in their heart. There's something that's happened in their past, whether it's a trauma or abuse or something, like you had mentioned earlier, divorce. Parents get divorced. That's a lot of the times you can track back someone in their life to their parents got divorced and then it railroaded out of control, their life did. So we want to go in and present the gospel and basically love them to Jesus. And so what's really cool too is once these girls go through our program, at the end of the group, we throw basically a church-wide baby shower. So
really?
Where we
I
get
didn't know
to
about that part.
involve
Okay.
members of the church. So basically putting pro-life hearts into action. So these girls are no longer a statistic, they're a person. They're a person that lives in our neighborhood down the street and they've come to our church. And so it's so exciting to be able to connect with that. And then we also have Embrace Life, which is for single moms. So we want to talk about how to budget God's way and how to make time for rest and what does it look like to parent with consistency and communication and how do you co-parent and what are healthy friendships and what are healthy dating relationships. If a guy is beating you, that's not okay.
Right.
If you're in a friendship circle that you feel, yucky when you leave hanging out with them, then you're probably not supposed to be friends with them any longer. And so just kind of helping them, point them to Jesus. And we even do, we have like a Hearing God journal as part of the ministry tool where we're helping the girls learn how to hear from God. What does that look like? And how do you hear from God? What does that feel like? And so really just trying to point them to the source, the one who will guide them and lead them as they're walking through the season of single motherhood, along with talking about goals. We do like a bucket list party where we talk about what are their goals. Just because you're walking through this adventure right now doesn't mean that you cannot start working on a goal and dreams that the Lord has put in your heart. So those are the two kind of programs that we have.
That's really neat. So how long have you been around and how many churches are involved right now?
Yeah, so we're partnered with almost 500 churches right now.
Really?
Yes.
Is that just in Texas? Is that nationwide?
No, that's nationwide. So we're in about 46 states, 8 countries in Puerto Rico. We just added Puerto Rico last week. And so we call it the pro-love movement, essentially. We're pro-life, but we're pro-love. So, love is what makes the difference. And that's our heart, is we want to just spread Jesus' love everywhere. And
How long has the ministry been?
Yes. So 2012 we applied for our nonprofit status.
Okay.
And 2014 we got our first office. And the group started really, it's just out of the need, and it was started as a small group at our church back in 2008. So our president and co-founder, Amy Ford, she found herself in an unplanned pregnancy when she was 19, and even though she was raised in the church, thought abortion was her way out, because of the fear and shame that leaks into her heart from the enemy. And so she said she had an angel of a nurse who, when she was in the abortion clinic room, she passed out, and that nurse said, when she finally woke up, the nurse said, okay, you're not getting an abortion today, you can come back another day, but today's not your day, which doesn't typically happen these days.
Right.
That was about 20 years ago. And so she said that she left, told her baby daddy, but now husband, that, one day you'll thank me, and we'll just, if we're going to be homeless, we'll be homeless together. And so she said that season was one of the loneliest seasons of their life. Even though they got married when she was probably about 16 weeks along, the church didn't know whether they should say thank you, or they didn't know if they should say congratulations or I'm sorry. So they just didn't say anything at all. And so it was from that season in her life that flash forward, she was at a women's conference at church, and the Lord downloaded this vision of saving the mommies and the babies and throwing baby showers. And so she had no idea what that meant. She went to a pastor and said, what do we do with this? What do I do with this vision? I've never had a vision before. And that pastor helped her cultivate it into, why don't you just start a small group and invite single pregnant girls to come, and then maybe throw them a baby shower. And so at the time there was no such thing as single and pregnant curriculum. So they read through a book called Embrace Grace by Liz Curtis Hicks, yes. And which obviously wasn't single and pregnant women, but it talking about God's grace on their life. And so through the years, it just developed to where we could write our own curriculum and then produce our own DVD curriculum that went along with the study guide curriculum.
So as far as the churches, I'm assuming, and maybe I'm incorrect in this assumption, that you probably have had to do some educating of the churches to be able to minister.
Yes, absolutely. Education is so important. And, the statistic is 1 in out of every, I think it's like 3.8 women have had an abortion experience. And that statistic is the same inside the church as it is outside the church. So we have women sitting in our pews that have had an experience who feel disqualified, who feel like their life, like they could never lead anything because the enemy has come in with the fear and shame. They've probably never told anyone their stories.
Right.
So we're serving these young women who are walking through it, but then we're also equipping women who many years ago might have walked through it, or maybe their sister walked through something, or their mom had a story or whatever, who feel called by the Lord to then love on these girls. So it's just a beautiful picture of God's redemption and kind of full circle of how you can use your past to bring him glory. And so, but as far as educating the church, we talk a lot about, if Roe versus Wade, as believers, we pray that Roe versus Wade gets overturned.
Right.
But if it gets overturned, is the church ready? Are
Right.
we ready to respond? Do we have something in place? Do you have a support group to where these girls are welcomed into your church? Because you can only imagine if the church wasn't ready, the media would have a heyday of, you voted for this and you're not even doing anything. Like you're not even servicing these women. So.
Right. When you talk about the enemy and stuff like that, many of these women, I've talked with a few, they talk about, it seemed like a good idea at the time, and they probably would have defended, hey, I'm exercising my right to have an abortion. And yet, for 30 years later, they're still weeping. They're still regretting. They still live in the sense of shame. And as you mentioned, so many people that have just been silent. And I think it's tremendous that you're actually giving them the ability to accept and learn that there's forgiveness for them. Now, I don't know if you know who Jennifer Roback Morse is. She works with the Ruth Institute, but she also deals with what she calls survivors of the sexual revolution. Sexual revolution, we can have as much sex as we want with whomever we want. We're a pro-divorce culture. We're a pro-abortion culture. But the people that come through that deal with scars throughout their lives, and the scars are not just with themselves, but they become intergenerational. It gets passed down to children, sometimes to grandchildren. And I'm really glad to hear that you're talking about empowering the church. Can you give an example of one church or maybe a couple that maybe were a little bit resistant at the beginning, and then you got in there, and now they're really behind? And
yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think which church comes to mind the most. It's the smaller churches, I think, that make, sometimes they disqualify themselves as, well, I am a part of a small church,
Right.
And so it's like an automatic disqualification. And so it's really amazing to see these smaller churches who, take the leap of faith to be obedient, to start an Embrace Grace group, and they might have 1 or 2 girls come through their group, and how in a smaller pond, you have a bigger ripple.
Right.
And so being able to see the impact that it has on the entire church, because, it's all eyes are on, essentially.
Right.
And we were in a meeting one time, and we had an older woman come in, and she had mentioned, we were talking about our program and the ministry tools that we have, and one of the ministry tools that we have that goes along with the Embrace Grace program is a tiara. And sometimes we have people who laugh at that or scoff at that, and they're like, oh, that's just, why do you need a tiara? And so they went into the explanation of why we use a tiara. And so we use it for one of the events that we have called Princess Day, where we basically were honoring her choice for life. The baby shower that is hosted is for the baby and the baby needs, but the Princess Day is really to honor her. And so we, were able to gather volunteers to come in and do their hair and their makeup and just make them feel so beautiful. We'll have a photographer come in, and Kimberly actually plans those events for our church. But she, this older woman was listening to all these things, and we said how we took the tiara and we placed it on top of these girls' heads, and we placed them in front of a mirror, and then we declared over them, you are a daughter of the Most High King, and you're valuable, and you're worthy, and you're His princess. And how that is such a freedom ministry for them, because you've been hearing it all semester long, or you've read it in your book, but now you're actually feeling it by someone placing a crown on top of your head. And she just began weeping and telling her story, and how she was forced to have an adoption, and that her parents had sent her away, for the entire duration of her pregnancy, and how she it was just a very shameful period in her life, and how, she was just crying at the fact of if someone had put a crown on top of my head. And so actually one of the women that were in the meeting went and grabbed a tiara and put it on top of her head and crowned her, and spoke those words of life and edification over her. And I think it's just so important that you don't know what someone has been through. And so being able to see the impact that just a small act, so whether it's a small act from a church or if it's a larger church, it doesn't matter like what the size of the church is. There are single and pregnant women out there, and go get them. Why can't the church be the search and rescue team, right? If we're supposed to go out and present the gospel to people, why not go out there and look for them,
Right.
And so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what came to mind for me, is just the redeeming part of, it doesn't matter where you're at and how old your story is or how old you are, what you've been through. Even as leaders of the group, there's things that we learn from leading that is just the Lord will give us revelation or give us a freedom moment or a healing moment. So it's awesome.
So when you look at the Gospel of John in chapter 8, and the woman who was caught in adultery, and everybody was accusing her, and what did Jesus do? He ends up, after he addresses the people that were the accusers, he turns to the woman and says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." And you think about the love that Jesus showed, and the acceptance. Didn't say that everything was okay, but there was some, in the midst of that, he had the truth and the grace at the same time. And so often the church lacks in one area or the other. And I've heard, unfortunately, I've talked with some ministers who've said the loving thing that Jesus would do would be to hold her hand in the abortion room. And I've been shocked to hear people that would actually say that. So yours is a ministry of life.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Kimberly, tell us what you're doing what your plans are right now, because I know you've been an event planner and everything, but
right. So now I get to take my last 16 years of experience in the event world and what I educated myself through college, but I get to do it on a God level. So it's great to do weddings. That's super sweet and fun. But when you're doing events or conferences just like this, to bring people closer to God, it changes your whole perspective.
Right.
Our whole feel, anytime that you talk with any of our staff, and we only have 13 staff members, so we're a very small team. We work really, really hard. We don't look at it as work. And that's what makes it so much fun, is that literally we want, from the moment that you walk up to us or you come into our gala or our golf tournament or anything that we do, we want you to feel accepted and loved. And that's just the biggest piece of it, is from every emotion we want to touch on. And that's the fun part of my job, is that I get to do that. I get to bring visions of events and then make them come to life. Right. So it's fun.
There was another lady that I talked with recently, and she was in the abortion clinic, and finally somebody, before she went in, they told her, ask the doctor to see the baby, ask to see the sonogram. And she said, please show me the baby. And the abortionist was saying, no, we don't recommend that. I want to see the baby. No, we don't. And finally she just got adamant, and she said, show me the baby. And she said, now 18 years later, she has this beautiful son. And I think that someday these children that are being born will come back to you and thank you as well. And it's not just the children and the parents. I think you're going to find grandparents, uncles, aunts, maybe a future spouse that's going to be able to come back. Your ministry is wonderful. If some church wants to get involved, or some individual wants to get involved, how would they go about doing this?
Yeah, go to embracegrace.com, and there's a tab on there where you can say start a group, and you can fill in your email address, and we'll send you an instant email that has our program starter guide in it. So it has all the details on how you can start a group and what that looks like. You can even request a full copy of our DVD, a sample chapter of the DVD curriculum. We'll send that to you via email as well. And really, it's talking with your pastor, sharing it with your pastor, and let's partner together.
Now, one other question here, because now, is there some competition going on among churches to say, hey, because you have these boxes that you're putting together? Can you just talk about these real quickly?
Yeah, we would love to.
Okay.
Yeah. So our Love Box initiative, we started really as a way that we could partner with pregnancy centers, and we wanted to be able to give them something more than just a brochure. We wanted to give some sort of invitational gift that they could pass out to their single and pregnant clients that were coming in. They, gave us the vision for the Love Box, and so basically you've got this really cute Best Gift Ever onesie in it. We have a You're Invited, so it has two stories of a girl who chose to parent and a girl who chose to place for adoption. We have our basically our Brave Girl journal, so it's kind of like a reflective journal with writing prompts. And then our president, Amy Ford, her book, A Bump in Life, which is 20 testimonials of girls who chose life, whether they chose to place or to parent, and like crazy stories, pastors' kids, pregnant by rape, just crazy stories in there. And then this is really fun too. These are our Dear Brave Girl letters. So we actually have handwritten letters in each of the boxes that come in from all over the nation. So people who will write encouragement and life. Sometimes they put scriptures in it. We have some ladies who actually put their phone number on it if the young woman who received it wants us to reach out to them. So that's so cool. And then we have another free gift for them too. So if they text us the number, then we actually send them a free necklace. So it's another touch that we're able to say, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How far along are you? You want us to help connect you to a group. And so we're able to give those out to pregnancy centers that have an Embrace Grace group within a 30-mile radius. And so they're actually free for the pregnancy center. We do the fundraising for the cost of the boxes, and the center just pays the shipping costs. So it's a tool that their client advocates can use in the intake room and actually have them walk through this gift. So you're creating an emotional experience at the pregnancy center. And what's really cool too is this year we've launched what we call Share the Love parties. So actually churches or a business or a group, small group, can actually purchase the unassembled boxes from us at a discounted rate. We ship them out to them, and then they get actually post an event where the people gathered then can actually assemble the boxes. They get to write the letters, they get to package them all up and put the sticker on it and the tool on it and everything, and then they get to go love bomb their local pregnancy centers, or even we've had some dropped off at like high school nurses and counseling offices, any other service organization that serves single and pregnant young women. So that's really fun too, of being able to have that outreach event opportunity where you're having people not just hear it but see it and touch it and feel it. And again, it's really just kind of putting pro-life hearts into action, giving them something to do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes,
It's wonderful to see
people.
people.
Jeffrey. Yes.
So thank you.
This is wonderful.